Hello, Warlords. Welcome to Saga Thursday. I'm Raj, your host on this journey. We are chatting with the immortal Andy Lyons here today. How's it going, dude?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent. So, yes, glad to finally talk to you. And I have to commend you for purposefully purchasing a webcam and the gear that you needed to do this. Hopefully you'll get some more use out of it. I'm sure we'll talk again, but now you can talk to all your gaming buddies across the land.
Wow.
Yeah.
That won't take long.
Yeah. Well, it is pretty fun if, and this is maybe a thing more here in the States, but just Skyping with your buddies while you're painting is a kind of a fun thing to do. So I'll do that from time to time with people in Minnesota, or I have a buddy in Canada. Sometimes you just fire it up and paint away, so it's kind of cool just having a buddy chatting with you. So I'd recommend that, giving it a shot. Drag some of your other buddies into the...
I did my first Facebook video call as well today, so I'm trying out all the different techniques now.
Oh, cool, yeah. Awesome.
Next thing will be a YouTube channel.
Yeah, I would love that. Angsty Castings YouTube channel. I would check that out. Be subscriber number 1. So we're having you on today to talk about the Strathclyde Welsh, which is the absolute #1 request I've received over the year or so. Multiple times people are asking for Strathclyde Battleboard review. When's it coming? When are you gonna do it at all? Can you do it? We desperately need your help on this one. So I'm happy to say we're finally getting to it, and this is actually the last Dark Age battle board that I'm getting around to. And to commemorate that, Gripping Beast has sent me a Strathclyde Welsh starter box, which that thing weighs probably like 8 or 9 pounds of serious metal.
You've got metal in there, yeah.
Yeah, so afterwards we'll be doing a giveaway related to that. But they've been super generous with that to sort of commemorate this milestone of getting through the Dark Age war bands. But I think we're going to get into that. So the reason it's a mass of metal is all of these guys are mounted in the starter box, at least. Is that basically true for the war band? Does everybody have to be mounted?
Your levy can be on foot, but the rest of your army is mounted, unless you use one of the heroes, but I don't favour him.
He is not.
Keep the horses. You get a massive mounted army, and it's very intimidating.
Yeah, I have to say something about, I've seen Norman armies that focus on just warriors on horse, and it's pretty imposing. It looks like an old Warhammer army from 10 or 15 years ago on the tabletop, and you're like, holy crap, there's a lot of meat out there on the board. Okay, so yeah, the Warlords and Hearthguard must be mounted. The Warriors may be mounted, but it seems like you would want to mount them. Do you want to talk about their kind of special deployment type rule for their small units?
With the Strathclyde, you don't have to deploy all of your units on the table. Some of the abilities get a boost from the amount of units you leave off the table. You have to bear in mind that any units that you don't get back on the table during the game are counted as casualties. So it's a balance.
Okay, that sounds kind of an interesting angle. So these units have to be 6 models or less, right?
Yeah, maximum of 6 models, yeah.
And then is there a limit to what you can deploy off the table? I mean, could you have like nothing to start with, kind of?
Well, you'd have no Saga dice then, and then you'd lose. So that's not a good plan. No.
Okay, that doesn't sound like a good plan.
No. You can't leave your Warlord off either, so you wouldn't want to leave him on the table on his own.
Okay, that's kind of interesting then. So they don't generate dice off the board, and most armies, you might have, you're capped at 6, and you might start with like 7 or 8 dice being generated at the beginning. So just to kind of set the scene for when we go through, how many units on average would you maybe just typically have off the board?
Depending on the scenario, because some scenarios it's an advantage to pop those guys on at some point during the game. So you might want to leave 1 or 2 units extra off, but generally I leave 3 units off.
3. And then so how many do you have on the board then? Are you still generating like the full 6
Yeah, I go. Do you want me to run through army build or do that later?
We can do that afterwards, but I just wanted to get a good idea. How many units typically are going to be off the board as the game starts.
You need to generate 6 dice at the start of every game you play, really. Otherwise, you're at a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. So we're going to be looking at some horsemen here, and so one thing that's kind of interesting is these aren't javelin guys either. These are just melee dudes.
It's a mounted melee army. That's what it's good at. The miniatures have javelins, but they prefer to keep hold of the other end.
Just poke them. So the levies can have javelins, but the rest of the guys are just the melee version. So that's kind of an interesting thing. If you didn't read into it or know better, you would think these are jav cavalry guys, given that the regular Welsh are jav chuckers. So, all right, well, let's get into the board. And I'm looking at the standard activations. On the left side, it looks pretty typical. One thing about the attack pool is it's melee only, which makes sense. They don't really have much for shooting. And it can only be used for attack dice, so no defense dice option.
Yeah, these are go-getters.
Okay, so it kind of maybe makes sense, a little themey. They're probably not as heavily armored as some of the other guys, so you can kind of represent that by just modifying the attack pool rather than, say, giving a blanket armor reduction or something like that. So that's kind of cool. All right, so before we get into the board, really, there's little horses on a bunch of these abilities. Do you want to tell me what's up with those horses?
Sure. Well, these abilities can only be used by mounted units.
Wow, so that is not too difficult to grasp.
It's not a big reveal, but there you go.
That's kind of interesting because on other boards, there could have been some like common nomenclature. So, there's other abilities on boards that can only be used by mounted guys. So I kind of wonder if in Saga 2.0, if every ability like that on every board could just have a little horse or something. Or, this ability can only be used by bow guys. You could have a little bow or something. Kind of interesting idea for 2.0. But, okay. You want to get into flanking maneuver, number one there?
When you leave your units off the table, there's only one way to bring them back on if you don't lose at the end of the scenario, and that's with the flanking maneuver. So you activate foreign movement, one of your off-table units. Each model in that unit must start its movement from any point on any table edge, but may never move or end its movement within shot of an enemy model. So you can't bring them straight on and into a melee in one move, but they do get their full move from the edge of the table. So a 12-inch movement from any table edge.
That's pretty big. Yeah, you're pretty much going to be into the action, no matter where you're coming on.
Well, that be on some of the scenarios like the baggage train, the escort, where somebody might be hiding the baggage behind the front row, and you bring a unit on at the back and steam into them. Mm-hmm. It catches people out.
Okay, so this is the only ability that can bring troops on. Is that what you said?
Yeah, units flip off the table. This is the only way to bring them on.
Okay.
Off the battle board, yeah.
And it's two common dice. So, like we said, being able to move on is pretty powerful. Just everything else being even. So at least it takes two dice. So a little bit fair.
Most armies, most warbands, when people roll their 6 SAGA dice, as soon as they roll a rare symbol, reaching for an extra dice to pick it up and roll for 2. This warband needs to use its rare dice, so you're not always going to roll those for extra in the activation pool. Mm-hmm. Having to spend 2 of those dice then to bring a unit on is quite expensive. Okay,
yeah, I agree. Especially because it'll be a 6-man unit too, so they're not bringing on these Death Stars potentially. But you're just going to have to spend the dice. You got to get those guys on before the end of the game. So you might have some tough decisions at the end, maybe. If you're down to 3 or 4 SAGA dice and you have a unit or 2 off the board still, you kind of have to put your dice on this. You have to,
get them on. just to keep your dice, the Saga dice generating.
Okay, so that's a good point. Yeah, activation ability. So you can use it basically at any point in your turn.
Any point in your turn after the orders fade. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Let's go down to War Spears. This is a melee ability that uses an uncommon Saga die. You're going to designate a unit, increase by 1 the armor value of this unit. Not too shabby. Each attack die roll against this unit that rolls a score of at least 1 point higher than the armor of the unit inflicts 2 hits rather than the usual 1. Okay, so kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, but it's a double use one as well. You can play it on your own units. So if you have a unit of warriors and you charge into an enemy unit who's got a fatigue, you can put your armor up with their fatigue to 5. You can then put it up with war spears to 6. Any dice roll that rolls above that generates 2 hits on your unit. You can't roll above a 6.
No.
So you get the armor benefit without the 2 hits penalty. So timing is good for this one. Also, you can use it the other way around. You can charge into an enemy unit who's got a fatigue or not. You can drop their armor. You can put it back up with war spears, because you can play this on the enemy unit, not just on your own unit. So you'll put the armor back up to 4. Any 5s or 6s you then roll become 2 hits.
Nice. Yeah, that's really
juicy. This works great in combination with another ability later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anything where you don't have to roll any additional dice or anything. You just get, if you roll that 5 or 6, you get that extra hit. Boosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be pretty nasty. Especially, makes things a lot dicier. You could get, 3 or 4 or 5 of those. And all of a sudden, you're doing like 10 or 12 hits or something. That's incredibly bananas. Wow, that's really cool that you can use it for either.
Either use it to boost your own armor or increase the enemy's armor by a point. But on low armored units, you're generating more hits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Nice way to boost up your Hearthguard, and just for 1 dice, I know on like the Anglo-Dane, Anglo-Saxon boards, to get +1 armor as a 2, it's 2 dice on those other boards. So I think you're getting a great value out of that single dice here.
Yeah, be careful where you use it though, because if you've got a fatigue yourself, the enemy will drop your armor back down, and then the 6s are hitting you twice.
Yeah, definitely. You want to go in fresh and pop this baby.
The timing of your attacks, yeah.
Okay, and then one thing, it doesn't have the horse, so you could, if you had some foot sloggers or leathy, you could use it on them, but don't seem like a particularly good idea on the levy. Okay, you want to go into bold attack?
Yeah, this is one of the ones where you need your rare symbol for, so not automatically reaching for that extra Saga dice when you roll your initial 6 dice. Bold attack is a melee ability. The armor value of your unit is decreased by 1. Reroll any of your attack dice that fail to hit. Now that's big. If you're generating a lot of attack dice, you reroll your misses. We're talking Vikings Uller here, but for 1 dice, but it is a rare dice, so you need to hit a couple of rare dice every turn on this board to get the most out of it. But reroll your misses. What's not to like?
Yeah, not a lot of rerolls in Saga, so we've seen the power of Uller over many years. So just having an ability like that is definitely huge. So do you offset this with war spears, or do you say, well, I don't care if my guys live or not, as long as I'm rerolling?
I tend to use smallish units with this army. So if I'm sending an army in, I want to be doing more damage than I can potentially take. So war spears and bold attack together. If I can get 5s and 6s count as 2 hits and re-roll my misses, more chance of 5s and 6s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow, that could be a powerful little 6-man Hearthguard unit. Something 12 attacks, re-rolling misses, doubling them on 5s and 6s. Interesting. Bold attack.
It's a definite melee army. All of these abilities are kicking in on melee and combinations of melee.
Yeah, I'm already getting kind of like a North scale feel from this, where you're somewhat hurting yourself a little bit, but you're really amping up your destruction capability, and it already looks like there's going to be some bloody combats happening with casualties on both sides.
There's not many figures left at the end of the game, yeah.
Cool. We got another mounted ability, Whirlwind, using an uncommon die. This is another melee. At the end of step 7 of this melee, remove all fatigues from your unit. I'm liking that. If your unit must disengage from this melee, it will be a distance of L. So at the end of step 7, so is that after the actual fatigue generated for the melee itself?
Yeah, you generate fatigue before you disengage in the melee sequence. So step 7 is you generate your fatigue.
So you basically after that, you're basically...
so you would get your fatigue, and then you would take it off.
And then if you had more, you would lose those ones as well. Wow, that's great. And then being able to disengage, it's pretty awesome, a distance of L. So you can retreat if that's your option there. But
if you're losing, you don't want to be left sat there if you've had a unit that's been smashed. Mm-hmm. You want to get out, because they could be a SAGA dice saver.
Yeah, but then on the flip side, these guys are going to be completely fresh, so you could use that move to get closer to the next unit you want to pounce on, potentially.
Yeah. It's got another use as well, which I'll tell you about after we've run through the abilities.
Okay. Yeah. So uncommon dice, that's pretty awesome. I think I just did a Byzantine board review, and they have an ability that all it is a move long disengage, and I can't remember if it's a common or uncommon die. So on this one, you get to remove all the fatigues, so that is quite awesome. Another good bang for your buck here, but another uncommon die. Are those the hot die on this board?
It's a dice. It's a board where you need some of every symbol. There isn't one like the Franks, where if you don't get any helmets, you're in trouble. It's you need all of the symbols on this board.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, looks like a good one. Do you want to go down to the doomriders there?
Yeah, this is the first one that gets you a benefit from the units that you leave off the table.
Okay, cool.
So it's melee ability. So you gain 1 attack and 1 defense dice. That's the first part. Then, if your unit is within long, and I don't know if the L is missing off your board, but it is off mine. It is long.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. If your unit is within long of any table edge, you gain an additional 1 attack and 1 defense dice for each unit off the table. So 3 units off the table. If your unit is within long of an edge, you get 4 attack and 4 defense for a common dice.
Wow, that is, even if you don't have any, if your unit's within L, just getting 1 attack die and 1 defense dice is pretty good for common, and having the
if no units left off board, you still got the 1 and 1.
Mm-hmm, still better than the attack pool, and wow, that's pretty good. So, and it has to be your unit, so you could maybe string it out a little bit, maybe to make sure you're within L.
Yeah, if you're going into melee, you should back up as much as you can and move down the line. But there are ways of making sure somebody's within L. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's not within L. That's a pretty small 3x4, 2 foot by 3 foot area. Okay. So
the 1 foot in the middle that's outside that.
Mm-hmm. So the doomriders. Wow. Well, that's an incentive for your opponent to jump to the middle as quickly as possible and kind of huddle up.
You would think
surrounded.
Yeah, there's something later to stop them doing that.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I'm liking that one so far. I haven't seen really any duds so far.
You've got a lot of value in that one common dice, and that's the only melee ability so far that uses the common dice. We've had the uncommon and the rare so far for the others. So that's a good mix of dice. You're always going to get a common dice in there. That's where it goes, first dice down.
Oh yeah, I agree. Good bang for the buck. Okay, we're heading back up top. Wild Charge. That's another mounted ability. It's an activation that uses a rare and an uncommon. Activate for a movement one of your mounted units. If that unit engages in melee with this activation, each of its models generates one additional attack die. Interesting. So this is an activation ability, not a melee ability. So at the start of the combat then is when you add the die, and could that be doubled? Is there any clarification on that?
The key word in the reading of the ability is that each model generates one additional attack dice. So a warrior will generate 2 dice per model. A Hearthguard will generate 3 dice per model. You then can add to that, double up on those numbers. So if you've got 6 warriors, they will generate 12 dice. You can then add your doomriders in there for another 4 dice. Ooh. These 6 warriors are suddenly pumping out a lot of dice.
Wow.
Then you have your bold attack, where you're re-rolling your misses, and your war spears, where your 5s and 6s are causing double damage. You can put, with those 6 warriors, 15 hits on a unit, no problem.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you probably have 5 or 6 warrior units like that potentially. So you don't.
Yeah.
You may or may not care if that unit gets killed.
It's all about scoring more hits than you're taking. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're definitely gonna get that, but it is pretty pricey as abilities go.
This is where we're not reaching for the extra SAGA dice when we're rolling for the activation pool. We're putting the rare symbols on the board.
We're taking the wild charge. Yeah, that is a great ability here. Definitely synergizes well with the other stuff we've seen so far.
If you want to load all those abilities up, the wild charge, war spears, bold attack, and doomriders, that's 5 of your 6 dice. You're only going to get 1. One thing done this turn.
Yeah, if you can wipe out a big Hearthguard or something like that, maybe might be worth it.
You can take out an 8-man Hearthguard unit that's got a fatigue on them. With your 6 warriors.
Good trade. Yeah. Okay, that's pretty awesome. I'm liking that so far. And thus ends part 1 of our review of the Strathclyde Welsh. Hope you enjoyed the discussion with Andy so far. We'll be back next week to wrap it up. And I'll also have more details on the Gripping Beast Strathclyde Welsh starter box giveaway. If you have any comments, questions about anything you've heard so far, please drop me a line below and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, thanks for liking, subscribing, all that jazz. So I'll see you guys next week. Saga!